The fact that any grown man or woman could watch this and see anything other than the emotional exploitation and abuse of a very sensitive child beggars belief. That grown men and women could experience anything other than disgust at the sight of adults manipulating and exploiting the fears of this little girl and exposing her to this insane international media circus is mind-boggling. And one of the most disturbing aspects of all of this is that the adults who are cheering on the exploitation of this emotionally distraught little girl think it's a demonstration of how morally excellent and enlightened they are. This is a very young girl who has a history of quite serious mental health issues, who is clearly emotionally vulnerable, and who has been fed all of this terrifying apocalyptic climate change propaganda since she was 8 years old. And because she's a little girl, she has no capacity to contextualize any of this stuff, to judge it, to interpret it. And so she simply internalized all of it. She's had the hell scared out of her with stories about how the world is coming to an end, and instead of the adults around her, primarily her parents, calming her fears and reassuring her that she's going to be okay, in other words, acting like parents providing guidance and comfort to a child, they've reversed the roles and decided to submit to the child's perception of all of this. They've reinforced her childish, irrational fears. They've confirmed them. They've allowed the little girl to dictate to the parents what the lifestyle of the family's going to be. They had to become vegans. They can't fly on planes. She's not going to go to school anymore. And they've let other adults come in and expose this distraught little girl to this international media circus, this feeding frenzy. The fears of this little girl are being exploited by adults to serve a political agenda. And none of those adults want this little girl to stop being terrified. That wouldn't be good for business. The more scared she is, the more upset she is, the better.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
What's interesting about Greta's obviously emotionally overwrought speech is that although it's officially being directed at the audience at the UN and to all the adults she is deemed to have insufficiently addressed the issue of climate change, it can also be heard as being directed to her own parents, as well as all of those adults in her orbit and all of the adults in the general population who have allowed this to happen, who have encouraged it, who have got into it, embraced it, bought into the whole thing, rather than living up to their responsibility as adults to protect children from exploitation and harm. Listen again.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean.
How easy is it to hear that as a plea from a child to her parents? This is all wrong. I shouldn't be here. I should be back in school with the other kids where I belong. And that's exactly right. She shouldn't be at the UN giving speeches to adults about complex issues. She should be at home in Sweden, at school with her friends, like a normal kid. And that's where she would be if she had responsible parents and other responsible adults around her who were looking out for her. She clearly knows that. Why don't all of the adults who are cheering all of this on know that?
Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Exactly. How dare all of you put so much pressure on the shoulders of this little girl and put her at the center of this freak show?
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Exactly right. By filling this little girl's head with terrifying stories about how the world is coming to an end since the age of 8, you have robbed her of hope, you have filled her life with fear, and you have definitely stolen her dreams. And by failing to protect this little girl and allowing her to be thrust into the center of this hysterical media circus, you have definitely stolen her childhood. They've placed this little girl at the center of this hysteria, where crazy people are holding her up as some kind of sage-like figure with almost mystical powers of perception and insight about climate science and world economics and how societies should be organized. These very complex issues that she clearly has no expertise in and can't know anything about. Does she look like she's having a lot of fun doing any of this? Is it normal or healthy for a little girl to be experiencing any of this? Does anybody care about that? Or is wallowing in sentimentalism and indulging in the fantasy of a child climate saint just too gratifying for people to care about the well-being of a distraught little girl whose fears are being exploited in order to generate all of this?
How dare you!
This is going to get ugly.
Never okay.